What is up, students? Welcome back to Fab School. I'm T.
And I'm Evan.
And this week we're going to discuss the deck list and do a little deck tech for the deck that Evan won Calling Kansas City with.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had to re-record this video. Recorded a fire one at the venue with my in-person deck. That's beautiful, but T's phone broke, so now we have to record it on lame Fabruary.
Whoa, no, Fabruary's not lame.
Fabruary's not lame, but it's not clean like my deck, you know?
It would have been a lot cooler if we had the actual physical recording that we had, because it was so cool and we spent so much time working on it and everything. And then my phone blew up, so I lost everything. I lost all my pictures and videos and just a bunch of stuff off my phone, because somehow in the modern age I'm not using a backup. That's my fault. But
unlucky.
We still have the deck list here in front of us from Evan winning Calling Kansas City, and we're going to go through the list and the decisions and how we ended up on these cards and kind of the testing process, as well as some tips and tricks. So let's start with the equipment. We have a pretty stock loadout for Gravy. Hat options: Balance of Justice, Crown of Providence, Nolran Hood. Chest: only chest is Dead Threads. Only arms is Gold Baited Hook. Legs: Mage Master Boots, Quick Dodge Flexors, Nolran Boots. Nolran 2 as a basis for Verdance, and then against any matchup you want AB1, you play Nolran Hood. Balance of Justice for matchups, most of your matchups, including ones where, like the Mirror, where they're going to draw a bunch of cards, you're going to get a bunch of value out of Balance of Justice. Crown of Providence primarily for things like Assassin, where they're attacking your arsenal. That'll give you a reset, also draw you a card sometimes with their Codex. Compass, obviously very impactful. The only real option for making the deck work, being that it gives your things go again.
You don't want to play Talishar, bro?
I am not a Talishar enjoyer, at least not in Gravy. Is there anything that I missed there? Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Quick Dodge to be a reaction to stop things like Batter to a Pulp, Assassins, aggro matchups like Syndra, Mage Masters to get your deck more online faster.
Yep. I'd say one thing, if you're having a hard spot to find Mage Master Boot spots, just play Quick Dodge and everything. And then if you're unsure about Helmet, just play Crown of Providence.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. Balance of Justice, obviously very good against ninjas because they're going to draw from things like Mask of Momentum. Very good in the Mirror because they're going to crack gold. Outside of that, most matchups you can get away with playing Crown of Providence. Things like Warrior. I do think that Balance of Justice is going to be a better option if you're playing against Jarl, because you're going to have to use the block value whenever you need to use it, and then even though they're not going to be drawing cards, not popping your head will matter if that comes up.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Not exposing a Frostbite slot if you don't have to. Moving into the deck, I'll let you take over because you're the calling winner. The list looks a little something like this. We'll do a quick scroll through so that you can see the full list. It'll also be linked below, and you'll be able to see it on the FabTCG page, as well as there will be a link below to the Fab School Metafy, where you can look up a full sideboard guide for how we sideboarded this deck this weekend at Calling Kansas City, and some tips and tricks. We'll go over a few tips and tricks at the end as well, but just general list, talking about the card discussion and how we ended up here. So take it away.
Yeah, so just going to the list, I guess we'll start with the reds, just because there's not as many of them. Main deck reds, there's the Boat, obviously a broken card. 4 mana, 8 go again, CNC on hit. Really not much more to say about that one. It's super good. Probably like the strongest card in the deck. Really combines well with like Sawbones and Rigor Mortis. Next up, Golden Tipple. That's like the bread and butter of the deck. Obviously you play 9. It's kind of the whole engine for the deck. Really lets you obviously get your allies into the grave. It lets you stack up gold so you can do some unfair turns later. And then lastly, Blood on the Water. I think his card is like super slept on. I'm surprised not a lot of lists play 3. I think it's so good into a lot of matchups. Even if you're just getting like 4 block of value out of it, the fact that you can draw a card sometimes is kind of broken.
And in matchups where you're not having to worry about fatigue, you can just flip the top card of your deck randomly, and if you hit an ally, great. Like, you don't have to compass to make sure that it's going to be a thing. Sometimes you just might draw a card, and that's good enough.
Let's see. Next up, the yellows. Mostly just allies. Obviously, 3 yellow golden tipple. Again, card is just the engine for the deck. Probably the best card. Hopefully what they don't ban. Next up, non-ally stuff. We got sea legs. Sometimes it's like a 1 card, or it's a 0 card 6. Just because you discard it off tipple, get a rum, and you're able to use it later. I don't really like this card though that much. I think it ends up being really clunky a lot of the time, and I hate casting it as a 3 for 6, so I'm only playing 1. Non-blue cards, they just have to be like so good for me to want to play them, which is why there's not a ton outside of broken cards.
Having the big spread of blues makes cracking your gold more inevitable, and like random draws more inevitable.
That's one thing we'll get into after the deck tech is like, I think a lot of people don't value gold correctly, and it should just be viewed as like a lotus petal most of the time, +1 mana. Or +1 resources, you know. Let's see, going to the allies though, start off with Oisin just because there's only 1 of them. Not really much to say about Oisin. He kind of sucks if I'm being honest. Like, I've played probably like 300 games of Gravy, and I think I've like willingly casted him like twice. But I will say he's pretty good in the mirror, and like I said, occasionally spots will come up where you just don't have the money to like play another ally. So grabbing Oisin is like the best one. Moving into the 2 of allies. Anka, this one's fine. It's like a budget Sawbones almost.
Sawbones at home.
Yeah, Sawbones at home. Sometimes like the instant effect on it is really good with making your opponent discard a card after they draw. But I think it's kind of hard for it to line up, and really like the best part about this card is it's a 2 card 8, you know. He swings for 5, has 3 life, like
using Anka to gank your opponent in the mirror whenever they're using their tipple or whatever is sometimes really massive.
It is, but dude, I feel like they always just have like another ally in hand. I get baited most of the time.
Yeah, but shutting them off of resources can also take away some of their bigger turns to come back. Like if you have a board and you're just trying to protect your board, this can do that sometimes.
Very good against KO though, I will say that.
That is true.
I guess not necessarily KO, but just Blood Rush Bellows in general.
Blood Rush Bellow and Wild Ride in general.
Let's see, next up, Swabby. Swabby's kind of mid. He's like just good enough though. Costing 5 is like a lot to swing with, but a lot of times you'll be able to like fill that extra resource that you need by like drawing a card off gold, and then you'll have Dead Threads mana, so.
Or casting off of Saltwater Swell.
Yeah, it's very good off Saltwater Swell.
If you compass and know your top card's a blue, you can play a swell by pitching a blue, getting to the 5 floating. Saltwater being a blue, you can close the chain, and then play your Swabby and attack with it on the same. That
is just broken math, really. Let's see. Next up, my favorite ally, Scooby, or Scuba.
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo, Salty Sea Dog. He's kind of really bad, but that's also like the best part about the card, because your opponents just won't kill him because he costs too much to attack with. But also, with that being said, he's got too much life for a lot of decks to kill too. Like your opponent, like a lot of times you play against like Assassin, for example, and they just can't justify sending 4 at a Scuba just because it costs like a whole card to attack with. But I think he's pretty good. Like, eventually your opponent's gonna have to kill him, or you'll just double ally spam the rest of the game. And like even then, he's pretty decent, just putting back a yellow plus giving you a hook activation. So it ends up being like a 1-card 6 when you attack with it.
You get to put away your tipples back in the deck, put your sea legs back in the deck. That's more double ally, double attacks later in the game. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. Chum, he's kind of broken. Not really more to say about him. Forcing your opponent to attack Chum, kind of nuts. Like a lot of times, you can, if your opponent's like playing their turn poorly, you can just time block them with this card. And this card is like probably the best fearless target, just because you'll gotcha so many people with the -1, just because 6 is like so much health.
You also incidentally gain a bunch of value against random decks in the meta, like Valda. Whenever the surges pop, you just chum in response.
Yep, no batter to a pulps here. And he attacks for free, which is just kind of broken.
The free attack heroes, or the free attack allies, are really nice, because if they're going at your face, you can just dump your cards and then just get value with it every turn.
Block 12, send 4. That's a 4-card 16.
That is math.
Speaking of math, Rigor Mortis. So this is like probably the most efficient ally in the deck. 1 life is like really hard for some decks to deal with. Granted, like Assassins and Syndra and stuff can just send a dagger at it. But for a lot of decks, like they have to spend their entire turn killing the Rigor Mortis, and they just get cooked because of it. And like the fact that it costs 2 mana only to like attack and swing with it is kind of nuts. So like a lot of times, yeah, it's just the best math. Ends up, like a lot of times it ends up being like 2 resource 9, which is pretty insane. So, speaking of 6 attack allies, this is just like beefier Rigor Mortis. This one, just good all around. It costs 1 more, but like you essentially have 2 extra health on it. And if you're not getting the 2 extra health, you can at least like gain 1, and then your opponent still has to kill it. So it ends up being like 3 mana 10, which is kind of broken.
And this becomes a must kill against the decks that it matters against, like Syndra or Assassin.
Yeah,
it's a must kill because of the flick knives.
They just get cooked by this card. So yeah, pretty much all the allies are busted. Turns out playing creatures in a non-creature game, kind of insane. Next up, the blues. There's a bunch. I guess we'll go through like the ones that you never side out first. So, starting off, Avasti. Card's just good. 3-block flying high, kind of broken.
Yeah, most of the time you just use this for the go again. I mean, being a 0-cost blue, it can also enable playing your dudes from the yard for the turn. But like playing Avasti into like Rigor Mortis attack, into play Chum, play Scuba, some other ally, you just get a bunch of value.
Yeah, also like the on-hit gold is like pretty reasonable as your starter for the turn, so.
Yeah, because if they let the attack hit from that, then you can hook whatever your next attack is.
Yeah, or even then, like, I mean, 1 card make a gold is like pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Just because it turns out in turn. Next up, back alley break line. This card's like kind of mid. It ends up being like bad a lot of times, but obviously it's great to make your Call to the Grave like a split card. And then also sometimes you just hit it off Swell or Chart the High Seas and you just like win the game. So
I wonder if somebody we know did that in the finals.
I did flip one. I did not use my second action point. So I think like I flipped it twice throughout the weekend where I like didn't know it was coming up, and I greeted trying to use the action point, and I don't think I got value like either time. I think I just passive an action point. So it's good though. Kind of sucks that it's a 2-block, but 2-block non-starter, I should say. But worth playing just because it's so good of Call to the Grave. Speaking of Call to the Grave, this card, kind of nuts. It's like 2-card 10, pretty much all the time.
Demonic Tutor, very powerful.
Demonic Tutor, very powerful. Who'd have thought? And then sometimes it's also Avasti, which is pretty good. I guess not Avasti, but Flying High. I don't know. You got anything you want to add on Call to the Grave?
Being able to take just random things out of your deck. One thing where our lists differ is that you're playing the third D-React. I'm playing Dink, because I think that Dink fits that slot well as well. Being able to just turn your 70-30 matchups into 95-5s. I like the training wheels. You don't like the training wheels. Kind of just a little bit of a change in how we play the deck into some matchups. Obviously, you're doing it better because you won the calling. But if you, as a player, want to play Dink, that's the slot, and then Call to the Grave enables a lot more Dink lines. You can Arsenal a Call to the Grave and just wait for the moment where you draw quad blue, and like they spend a turn clearing your allies. You play the call, go find a Dink, then play Dink, attack with Dink. It's kind of nice.
It's fine. So you can play Call to the Grave, or you can play Humperdinck if you're a baby, but
I'm a baby.
it's all good. It's all good. We'll get you there eventually, T. All right. Next up, Chart High Seas. I think this is like probably the best blue card in the deck. It's so broken.
It's a pretty
Like,
good one.
Sometimes you just hit like you blind chart, just hit the bailout where it's like blue plus gold. Your turn was gonna be like probably 1 card 0 pass if you didn't hit an ally. I hit that occasionally, unfortunately, and sometimes you get the bailout, pretty sick. Melee though, it's just like if you already have an ally in the grave, or if you're super lucky and hit one, it ends up being like 1 card 9 or 1 card 10, depending on like what ally you hit, which is kind of unfair. It's like probably one of the best cards to Arsenal in the deck because of that. And also, we play so many blues that like you don't have to be scared just ripping it.
Yeah, that was one of the big level ups for me playing this deck, is that like I was just waiting and like compassing before chart. I think one of the big things that people use wrong is compass in this deck. Compass and gold both. But knowing that you can just blind rip chart because your percentages to hit something are so high is like a big unlock for playing Gravy.
Yeah, compass. I should probably talk about that in the Metafy. But like when you want a compass too, I think like changes a lot depending on like what matchup you're playing and like where you're at in the game. Because I think like your compass looks can like influence your blocking decisions a lot. But yeah. Next up, I have Ophidia. Card's just good.
Card's good value as a pitch, but if you're trying to play budget, this is something that you can obviously cut. It makes your matchups that fatigue a lot better, being able to see your stack and set up a better stack. But at the same time, it's not a complete necessity. If you want to play completely GTO, like if you're playing completely optimally, you need an eye. But if you're just trying to build a budget Gravy deck, you can cut eye.
Yeah, I will say one thing is kind of broken with gold. Like that's the reason to play it. But
yeah, cracking a gold with eye so that you get to scry and see what you're going to draw, decide what you're going to draw, and then possibly even still setting up something like a chart or a swell with the second card that you put down. Kind of nice. Like if you crack eye and see swell plus back alley break line, you can use the draw to draw the swell and then immediately play it because you'll still have 1 floating, and then you'll go into 3 floating plus 2 action points plus having done your blue to the yard.
yeah, it's also nice too. Like I feel like there's a lot of spots into like aggro matchups where like you kind of just have to draw boat or you lose the game, and just bottoming 2 cards that aren't boat, it's kind of nuts. Enough yapping about eye. Murderous Rabble.
Murderous Rabble.
Card's good.
Jumping all the way down here.
I have it set up a little different.
Oh, okay.
I got the blues that I never cut, and then the ones that I do cut.
Oh, true. Yeah, you did say that. Okay. Murderous Rabble.
All right. This one's just good. It's like 3 value. Go again. Enables like 2 card 12s a lot of the time.
And
Very
you can
good
play
card.
it blind as just another compass activation.
Yeah, sometimes the look is actually really good. But also like kind of carries in the gravy mirror.
Clearing their allies, yeah. One thing that we play differently than other Gravy decks is we're not playing red swell. We have a higher density of blues and answers to the Gravy decks versus like the Armory list is playing Red Swell so that they can clear in the mirror and get a little bit more pressure down in other matchups. I'm not a fan of Red Belittle in this deck. I think if you're just playing more things that eat the allies out of the yard, you're better in the mirror. And I don't think that the pressure from Red Swell is actually what's beating things like Syndra.
Yeah, but they also play stuff like Prismatic Leyline, so they're trying to fill out the value on that card.
Yeah, a little +1.
Well, 1 card 6, pretty good. Next up, Portside Exchange. Blue Tipple, but a 3-block. Kind of nuts. Oh, I guess I skipped over Blue Tipple, but we can talk about that.
That's the same thing. We know that 9x Tipple. Maybe we can just go to Portside.
Yeah, this is just 3-block Blue Tipple. Sometimes it has the hidden mode of Gorganian Tome, which is kind of broken.
Yeah, if your hand is empty and you play a Portside Exchange, you still draw a card. It doesn't say draw if you discard. So you still could just play this as an activator to draw a card. So if you have a Sawbones in your yard or a Rigger in your yard, you can just play Portside to draw a card to play one.
Yeah, play a pseudo chart the high seas. Pretty good. Blue Saltwater Swell. I don't know. I think this card's kind of mid, but I think you have to be careful cutting attacks from your deck just so you don't draw hands that are all titanium baubles. And it's decent enough with Swabby that I feel like it's okay.
Put it this way, a lot of people think that this is what should be banned, is Saltwater Swell from Gravy. I personally am of the belief that if you think Saltwater Swell is what needs to be banned, then you should play more games of Gravy to see how minimally impactful this card is and how that is not anything that is really what's making this deck churn. We've had considerations of cutting this card either some number of copies or completely. This is not the problem child of this deck, right?
No, it's really not. It kind of, I don't want to say it sucks, but
it's not great.
It's not great. You don't really need Belittle in your. You don't need Belittle that can only fetch Minnowism in your 34 blue deck, you know?
Yeah.
Next up, Tip the Barkeep. This card also kind of mid, but Rums are decent enough, and sometimes lets you store 6 value for later, and it's a starter, so gotta play it. It's a Titanium Bauble that has good enough text that it's okay.
Yeah, a lot of the cards in this deck are just Titanium Baubles with extra text sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what makes the deck so good, though. Good blues is the backbone of most good decks. Alright, let's see. Moving on to sideboard cards. Let's go Sunken Treasure. This one, maybe I overvalue this card compared to some of our teammates, but I think this card is good into most matchups.
It incidentally does stuff in a lot of matchups, whether it's forcing you to block with things like sea legs or whatever early against matchups and then being able to generate your first gold that way, or eating daggers versus Assassin or Syndra, which might come up and help give you the edge on the game. Or in the mirror, obviously eating their allies is really strong. They attack with Tipple and discard an ally, and you block their Tipple with a Sunken Treasure. The existence of Sunken Treasure forces a lot of lines in the mirror, where if they have to play around it, then they might have to send extra damage at your ally with their Tipples so that you can't block the Tipple. So the existence of Sunken Treasure, especially in a format where it's open deck lists when you hit top 8 or whatever, and they know that this exists, kind of completely changes their game plan or how they have to play into you and gives you an advantage.
Yeah, I also think this card's really good into Assassin just because you can turn off take up the mantle lines with it.
Yeah, you can eat their bonds out of the yard and then they can't take up the mantle bonds later, which bonds is one of the only ways that they can really consistently beat you is by getting off multiple bonds in a row or in the game.
Yeah. Let's see. Next up, a worse Sunken Treasure. A Sunken Treasure, but it's an action. This card's fine. It's very good in the mirror match. Just the existence of it. If you, like I said, are playing a top code game, or if your opponent knows you have it in your deck list, it kind of changes how you have to play. You can't really just throw allies in the graveyard and wait for value on them, which kind of forces your opponent to either get their allies eaten or they just end up being more likely to brick.
And taking worse lines.
Yeah.
We both played against Hamilton during the tournament, during the Calling Kansas City. I played him round 4, and after beating him, he walked up to you, and what did he say?
He was like, "You aren't playing this bullshit too," and I unfortunately had to break the news to him that I was. And then we played in round 11. So.
And did you win?
Unlucky for the. I did win. Unlucky for the GOAT. Actually, I watched all of his losses, and I feel bad. I don't think there's anything he could have done.
Yeah. Good gravy tech is good against gravy mirrors, turns out.
Who'd have thought? Loot the Hold. This card's sometimes really good. I think this card kind of like carries into Syndra and Acilio.
Yeah, matchups where they don't want to block, and you get to use a blue that enables your graveyard and then also forces them to block or lose cards. Very good.
Yeah, it kind of just makes your ally into like cast 2 Winner's Bites a lot of the time, which is kind of broken. And then if they just discard a card, it's like even better for you.
Yeah, because they take the damage and still lose a card.
Yeah, your turn ends up being like 2 card like 14, just because you get a gold plus a discard like 3 or 4 value.
Yeah, very strong.
Yeah, not much more to add on it. Not really good until like a lot of the slow matchups, just because you don't want to play too many titanium baubles in your deck, and into a lot of those matchups, the other sideboard blues are just better.
Yeah, if you take a look at the Metafy, you'll see where we're taking this out, where we're playing it, but it matters a lot more into aggro, and then some of the slower matchups, like you said, you just don't play it.
Yeah, speaking of slower matchups, Last Ditch Effort, this card kind of just insulates you from fatigue. You just can't possibly lose to fatigue, essentially. Like
everyone hates on this card until you crack 15 gold in one turn and attack them for 31.
Yeah, you could just play the whole game, like, playing it slow and, like, slowly chipping your opponent down, and then you just get to your final turn and you cast, like, 3 Last-Ditch Efforts and they just lose.
You cast 3 Last-Ditch Efforts and then attack with, like, a Tipple, Swabby, or whatever, and they're just dead, like, in one turn. If they get to half health throughout the course of the game by taking random chip damage from things like Tipple and, like, random non-hooked ally swings, they will just lose to an endgame fatigue if you get enough gold. You just crack them all in one turn, draw your whole deck, and then go.
Yeah, you don't even like necessarily need all 3. Like, I think part of the benefit of playing 3 is you just block with 1 early, and it's not like game losing.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to send it for 24, you're still probably going to leak enough to kill them. Like, if you send 2 Last-Ditch Efforts plus a Tipple and a Rigor Mortis, or any combination of attacks with Last Ditch, or just 2 Last Ditches might be good enough if they're clinging on by 1 or 2 points.
Yeah. Next up, Flying High.
Yeah.
Just worst of Asty. Sometimes, though, I think having like 5 go again effects in your deck is really strong. Kind of just enables the double ally turns whenever you want. And really guarantees that, like, you'll sometimes end up in spots where, like, your opponent kills 1 ally because they had to, like, block on their last turn, and kind of just guarantees that you will end up closing out the game.
Yeah, the inevitability of your blues in the end game being multiple ally swings, if you know how to take it easy on which allies you're playing throughout the course of the game when you know it's going to go late, having all of these effects like Flying High and Avasti so that you can use those as another out to get to digging with gold. You crack a few gold to find one of these that you know is in your stack, and then get to have these medium-sized turns to push you into the end game, either faster or more deterministic. It's just good.
Next up, Fearless Confrontation. This card, I think, is like very mid, but occasionally you'll just win the game when you draw it. Like in Kansas, I think I didn't play it. I didn't use it at all on day 1, and I was like, dang, this card kind of sucks. I don't know why I'm signing it in. But I just believed that it would eventually be good, and then when I continued siding it on day 2, I think it came up in like every single one of my games.
Yeah, this card's very powerful whenever it comes up, like you said. And you mentioned it earlier with Chum. If you can force your opponent to, like, end their chain with a CNC at a Chum or something, and then you Fearless, you just time walk them and the game is over. You also get some incidental flavor text out of this card versus, again, random things like Valda, where you can stop the dominate on Batter to a Pulp and then be able to not lose your compass. They'll sometimes have to take a lot of like loss in tempo to make sure that they can blow up your compass. And if you can end up protecting it, they might just lose the game.
You can also just attack for 5 with it too, which is like really bad. But I think against your boy Austin in top 8, like we got to a point in the game where I had him like fatigued. But you get to this kind of weird spot in some gravy mirrors where like if you don't just like snowball very quickly, you have the game like for sure locked up. At least if you're playing this list, just because you have like so many more allies than your opponent. But you kind of just have to like wait in this weird spot where you wait to like draw your last ditch efforts, and you'll have like 15-ish cards at that point. So, but your opponent will also be in a spot where they can't do anything. So you guys just kind of look at each other. But drawing Fearless Contemplation at that
6
point.
With go again. 3
Dude,
cards 6 with go again.
It might be broken.
The reason that you have more allies than them in the mirror is because you're going to eat more things with Seafloor Salvage and Sunken Treasure, and you get tempo by Scuba to put their allies on the bottom.
That's not even true, though. Most of these lists are playing like... So I've seen lists that side like 13 allies into Gravy, and like I think most lists are just on like 15 total in their deck.
Yeah, I mean, we're already higher, and then they're going to have some amount of answers. We're going to have more answers, so we're going to be way higher and have the inevitability of using things like Scuba to stop them from getting good tempo early. You're just going to have the game in a chokehold from the beginning if you control their graveyard instead of them.
Yep.
Let's talk about some ways. We don't want to spoil too much because the Metafy is going to have a deeper write-up for ways that you can improve on playing Gravy and tips and tricks and sideboarding and everything like that. But we do want to give a couple of pointers to maybe encourage you to check out the Metafy if you learned something that you didn't know from this video. So one big one that matters when it comes up but doesn't come up often is the Scuba Loop, which is personally my favorite because I think it's the coolest, and I love him. He's a good boy. So, Evan, if you want to explain the Scuba Loop.
Yeah, so you need like 2 blues, a Scuba, a Rigor Mortis, or like a Sawbones, or an Anka, just one ally that attacks for cheap, and then a Tip the Barkeep. You can put back yellow, or you can activate Rum to give your Scuba go again when you attack with it, and then you can put back gold, or give you a gold to your opponent, so you put back the Tip the Barkeep. And then you could Golden Tipple, or you can Scuba, put back Golden Tipple, make a gold, so you fund your Barkeep. And then you can go like 4-2-6 every turn, just because you can keep playing the Golden Tipple and then swing one of the allies with go again. And then you make enough gold for the Tip the Barkeep. So you end up looping like 4-2-6, which like if your opponent's at like 1 or 2, with like no armor in play, for example, you can kind of just fatigue them because eventually they'll run out of cards.
And it doesn't come up often.
The breakpoints are annoying.
It doesn't come up often, but if the situation comes up and you don't know how to do it, you might cost yourself a game that was otherwise locked up. The power of Scuba is that, like you mentioned earlier when we were talking about Scuba, a lot of people won't clear it. So if that ends up being an ally that just sits on your board, you can just win the game with it.
Yeah, like I said, though, I definitely think it's very rare. I think I've done it like twice. I'll say for sure it comes up a lot less with last ditch efforts, but I think like into Jarl, sometimes it'll come up like just short on your last ditch efforts, and the Scuba Loop will end up winning the game.
And we just like more excuses to put Scuba into play.
Yeah, I think his card's broken. I honestly, I don't know if I go below 3 into any matchup. I think the card's so gas.
Yeah, so this kind of wraps up the deck tech for Evan's Calling Kansas City winning Gravy list. We definitely expected more people to shift over towards this kind of list, but even in Copenhagen, not any of the Gravy lists we're copying the tech. So if
Dude,
if you want to win the mirror,
two things I've heard from the streets. All right, people are scared. They're scared to switch over so soon after Kansas City. And two, I keep hearing this go around that my deck is only made to beat Slippy and the mirror. But if you just play tight, you don't need tech for other matchups.
that is true. And it worked for you. You have a piece of glass on your shelf that says that that's incorrect. So
That's true. That's true.
So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something from this, or at very least, you got a pretty cool gravy list from it. And if you want to check out the Metafy, we will have that link below. So go check it out for full sideboard guide and more tips and tricks from the calling champion himself. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's going to be all for this week. Class dismissed.